Here comes Speed Racer. He's a demon on wheels.
Speed Racer gets a lot of hate for no reason. Now I know what you may be thinking. Didn't that movie come out like 15 years ago? Why is he talking about this movie? But truthfully, you guys probably don't realize how ahead of this time this movie was. And trust me, I can see the puzzlement on your face just from me saying that. But truthfully, I feel like I've been pretty critical in my last couple videos, so I want to talk about an actual good movie. Or at least a movie that's better than you may think. This is probably going to be part of a broader series where I defend movies that are panned by critics. Some will be what some consider cult classics, but others may not necessarily be considered cult classics and instead just don't get the love and recognition that they deserve. So if you guys think of any movies, feel free to send them to me and I might just make a video on it. So anyways, full disclosure, I am a proud owner of this movie. I paid $12.99 for it on Prime Video, and you know what? I don't have to defend that decision. But this video should do a good job of that anyways. So by now you guys should be getting a feel for how my videos are structured, so let's jump right in and give some background on this movie. This movie actually had a long road to actually hitting the big screens with multiple delays for various reasons. Warner Bros. Had the rights for this movie back in 1992. Julian Temple was set to direct the movie with some of his notable work coming with the band the Sex Pistols. Johnny Depp was cast in the lead role but eventually left the film after Temple left. They brought in Alfonso Cuarón to direct the film. You guys may know him as the director of Harry Potter 3. Various writers were brought onto the movie throughout its production. Hype Williams, who did the Gold Digger music video for Kanye, was set to direct at one point, and even Vince Vaughn was part of the movie at one point. Finally, in 2006, the movie was given to the Wachowskis to write and direct. You may know them as creators of movies like the Matrix franchise and V for Vendetta. Emile Hirsch was eventually cast in the lead role as Speed. In preparation, he watched every episode of Speed Racer and visited Lowe's Motor Speedway and hung out with Jimmy Johnson. Finally, in May 2008, the world got a true masterpiece. Speed Racer is a work of truly underappreciated art. Let's break down some common criticisms of this movie, and I'm going to explain why they aren't as big a deal as people think. But first, let's talk about the general plot of the movie. Speed Racer has a brother named Rex who apparently dies during a race. There is a CEO named Arnold Royalton of Royalton Industries who offers Speed a life of luxury to race for him. Royalton tells him that companies like his have been fixing races for years to gain profits. He destroys Speed's car and sues him. There's an inspector called Inspector Detector. I'm not making this up, this is actually his name. So Inspector Detector and this racer Tejo help him out. But Tejo actually just wants to raise the value of his family's company before it gets bought out from Royalton. So he makes Speed race in the Casa Cristo race with the mysterious Racer X. After this, Speed gets mad and eventually ends up confronting Racer X, and Speed thinks it's Rex. But when Racer X removes his mask, it isn't Rex. Or is it? And the off chance you haven't seen this movie, I'm not going to tell you if it is or not. Anyways, Speed ends up entering the Grand Prix and Royalton puts a $1 million bounty on him. During the race, this racer named Cannonball uses his spear hook to attach Speed's card to his, and Speed reveals it, which in turn reveals that they've been cheating. Cannonball crashes and Speed wins. Royalton goes to jail, and that's pretty much the plot of the movie. So let's jump into the criticisms. The number one criticism I hear is that this movie overuses CGI. And truthfully, I just don't understand that criticism. The movie was shot pretty much entirely on green screen, so the backgrounds of scenes can look a little off. But truthfully, after a while, you kinda just accept that it's the look of the movie, and when the whole movie looks like that, it doesn't really bother you. Or maybe you're weird and it does bother you. I don't know, man. The Wachowskis filmed this movie to look and feel like an anime, and if you think of it like a comic book or manga, it's a lot easier to appreciate the visual elements of this movie. They do a lot of overlaid transitions and scenes, and it flows like a comic book would. If you watch this movie shot by shot, you can almost visualize the comic book this movie would be based off. But honestly, this movie was way ahead of its time. There are plenty of movies shot on green screen and use heavy CGI. Avengers Endgame doesn't get this criticism, so it's odd to me that people criticize Speed Racer in this way. Right now I'm hopefully talking over a portion of the opening scene. Look at this animation and tell me it isn't creative. You see it? Yeah, you can't. I think the most valid criticism is that the movie is a little too long. I generally tend to think most movies over 2 hours are too long, but I think while the first half can come across as a bit slow, I think the movie picks up in the second half and you get some genuinely fun race and fight scenes. Also, a lot of animes in general have pacing issues. Naruto is infamous for pacing issues, as is Dragon Ball Z, but sometimes the good outweighs the minor flaws, and for this movie, I think that's definitely the case. The movie actually has a broader commentary on game fixing and corporate greed. You guys may or may not remember an NBA referee by the name Tim Donaghy. Well, if you don't remember or have never heard of him, Tim Donaghy was investigated by the FBI in 2007 for betting on games and fixing them to control the point spread. Donaghy would later plead guilty to conspiracy to engage in wire fraud and transmitting info through interstate commerce. He was paid for insider info on player-referee relations as well as info on physical conditions like injuries of players. Donaghy would later draw attention to another infamous NBA incident, the 2002 NBA Western Conference Finals. In that series, he alleged that Game 6 was fixed by 2 referees. He claimed that the NBA wanted a Game 7, so these referees were told not to call technical fouls on certain players. The Lakers ended up attempting 18 more free throws in the fourth quarter of that Game 6, and eventually ended up winning the championship against the Nets in the finals. Although investigations found no evidence of fixing, I'll let you guys be the judge of that.
Chris Webber has this all the way. Look at his feet. His feet are outside of Robert Horry's.
So while those incidents are unrelated to the plot of the movie, it's interesting to see Speed Racer cover the topic at a pretty relevant time. I think the script of this movie is fine. Speed is a fairly serious character in the show, and he's a fairly serious character in the movie. But it doesn't mean the movie doesn't have memorable lines and some humor.
Oh my god, was that a ninja?
More like a nanja.
The way the actors deliver their lines can be almost cartoonish and a little corny at times, but still knows when to dial it back and let the heavier scenes sit a little bit.
But it won't change the fact that I am going to finish this race.
God, you sound like Rex! You want to die like him too? Will that make you happy?
Don't take it out on me because you feel guilty for what happened to Rex.
Okay, you two, that's enough.
I think if you go into this movie expecting a really tight story and super realistic visual effects, this movie probably isn't for you. But you gotta remember guys, this movie came out in 2008. Let's go look at some other movies that came out in 2008. Do those movies really look that much better? Of course not. And whether you like the plot of the movie or not, you can't deny that the visual effects are a lot more creative and fun than those other movies. Anyways, I feel like I've rambled enough about this movie. So with all that said, I'm going to give Speed Racer this channel's first 10 out of 10. And that about wraps up this video. Leave a comment down below giving your thoughts on what video you might want to see next. This has been the MeloTime Movie Hour. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe.
Speed, I do not think you should be in this race. Ha-ha, the Mach 5 is not ready. Ha-ha.
But Pops, I must be in this race. Ha ha.
Very well. But you know I am not really your father. Ha-ha.
Oh.